A large format analog console is not that expensive to buy. Not too long ago, I posted this video about my setup in my living room, and it got a lot of reactions about my use of analog gear, about my setup, if it's worth it, and well, that's actually what I want to talk to you about today. Do you need analog gear? And what kind of place does analog gear have in a 2025 workflow? So I'll be in my car talking about the thing I love most, analog gear. Well, maybe not most, but... So the big question is, why analog gear? Why is my entire living room completely stacked with a lot of analog gear pieces? And I think a big question also is if we can get the same results in plugins, or if we actually really need analog gear. Let me start there first, because I truly believe, and a lot of other people truly believe, a lot of other people that have a lot more hits than me, a lot more plaques than me, that are way more successful in recording, mixing, mastering than I am. There are a lot of them that actually took a step down from doing all the hardware things, and they are now moving completely in a box. You okay, Junes? And you can work completely in the box. You can work completely analog. I don't like working completely analog. I don't think I get the same results completely in analog. But I don't like working completely in the box either. If I had the choice, I would rather work completely in the box than completely analog. But I think what matters most is what works for you in your situation, what you want to get out of it. And for me, a lot of comments under that video were like, okay, I didn't really get a reason why you liked it that much. And maybe that is because my reason mostly is workflow. I hate working only in the box and only seeing everything on a screen and only having to use my mouse. And I love being able to send some stuff to pieces of outboard gear and actually turn a knob, slide a fader, actually make things move. And that for me is a big part of why I really like analog gear. And maybe that is not worth the insane investment to some of you, but to me, that is what I want to get out of my work. I want to start working, start mixing, start recording, and then at the end of the day think, I cannot wait to do this again tomorrow and the day after and for the next 40 years. I think music should be that. If you do not like music or making music or the process of working on music, I think you should become an accountant maybe, or something else that actually pays a decent amount of money, because music ain't it. We've got a lot of messages on the dash. We got the front light, the tail light. We need to give it a service, but we're not going to do that today. But we are going to swap out some lights, because wow, fuck, it's cold out here. Okay, Mechanic Thomas is back. Let's go. Grab my favorite tool, yes. And that's all of the lights. Honestly, all of the lights. I really hope I bought the right ones.
Wait for it.
Let's open up the hood, trunk. Well, it's gonna be a frunk someday, hopefully, but that one's not working. That one is working because we changed that one last time. Yes. There we go.
Here it comes.
Wow. Quality. Oh. Huh?
Almost there.
Way bigger.
That's what she said.
What? I thought I had researched which bulbs to get, and I still bought the wrong ones. You know, I guess it's your lucky day. We're going for an extra long walk. Then another reason why I really like analog gear is because it makes me more creative. There's something about just touching the knobs, moving around, actually getting up from your chair. That's one, very healthy for you, even though we're not running around and lifting everything. Well, sometimes if you have to move an SSL console, like I just did yesterday at Next Movement Studios, you have to get a little bit of a workout going. But there's something about moving around and just touching stuff and going from left to right and just having the actual instruments and knobs and compressors and faders and everything there that just sparks some creativity. Didn't study any of that, but I definitely think the more physically active you are while you're doing everything, the more your brain is doing. I mean, look at going for a walk. You can suddenly think through your stuff. If you just sit on the couch all day, it's not gonna happen. And about the physical moving around aspect of that, there is something I really enjoy about analog gear, especially in a recording situation. And then I'm talking about analog large format consoles in particular. There is a really nice overview of everything that's going on in your session, because you have all the channels and all the stuff that is going to the mic inputs, with all the EQs there, with all the compressors there, the small faders, the auxiliaries, everything you need is right there. And it is like you've got all of those plug-in screens open all of the time. So when you see one EQ, you can immediately just check what another EQ is doing. I made a video about the FabFilter Pro Q4, which has like the instance list where you can see like, okay, my kick EQ is doing this and my bass EQ is doing that, and you can adjust them there. That is like the same as how it works on a console. I've got maybe my kick EQ on channel 7, and then on channel 8 I've got my bass. I just get more info. I can just check if they are not interfering anywhere, or if I'm not boosting the same frequency. But more importantly, in a recording situation, when you've got 6, 8, 20, 50 people in the live room, and they all request different things, and one needs to have the vocal turned up, the other needs to have the guitar turned down, the other needs to have a little bit of reverb. Everything is right there. You don't have to go through menus. You don't just have one mouse, because you can just fly to channel 32, open up auxiliary 3 that has the vocal, for example, and then go back to channel 3, which has the snare top, and you can dial in a little bit of that reverb on auxiliary 1, for example. That in a recording situation, I could never do that in the box. So there, yes, you could do that with something like an Avid S6, but then we are getting into the realm of how financially responsible is an S6 to have, because it is a controller and it doesn't have anything audio wise included. It doesn't have preamps, doesn't have EQs, it doesn't have compression. All of that you still need to build with converters and output preamps and output EQs, compressors, all of that stuff. And an SSL console, for example, you can pick up a reasonably good SSL for 40,000, 50,000. So if you put that into perspective, with a lot of single outboard gear pieces already costing well over 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 bucks, a large format analog console is not that expensive to buy. But then it comes to maintaining a large format analog console, and there's where it gets expensive. But I think that is something I would rather talk about with someone like Mark, and then we can actually dive into all of that. That's not for today's video, but I thought that would have been a good thing to mention, because that is something that people often overlook, and they buy a console and then it's nice for a year, and then the first round of maintenance comes and then they think, oh,
it's not so fun anymore.
I think then we get to the maybe most annoying part about analog mixing, and that is recall. Because yes, you can get all the sounds you want in a mix and dial in everything you want, and maybe you're mixing on an entire analog console, but then you've got tens, hundreds, thousands of knobs to exactly put in the same exact position again if you want to recall that mix. So if you have a certain compressor setting or you've got your fader set in a certain way, you have to set all of that back up again, and that just makes analog mixing a pain in the ass sometimes. He always goes crazy on loose sand. Unfortunately, he doesn't listen that well that he can go off leash. Letting him go off leash right now could result in a half an hour walk, but it could also result in a 4-hour walk. And trust me, I've been there. It's not fun. Okay, so yes, it is true that brands like SSL and even a bunch more actually added things like total recall to their consoles, which made saving your settings and recalling them later well, let's put it this way, you could do it. You didn't want to do it, and it definitely wasn't as easy as it is now with Pro Tools or Logic or any other DAW that you're using, which just recalls instantaneously. I have done mixes in analog, completely summed on the desk, and trying to recall it, you never really get the same result, let alone being able to recall 5 mixes in one day, maybe even 8, maybe even 20. That is definitely something about the digital domain and DAWs that I definitely do prefer over mixing an analog. What's this? The way has been shut. The way is shut. Okay, sorry. I won't go that nerdy today. Let's go find another path, Junes. I do think it's worth mentioning brands like Cranborn Audio, Taylor, West Audio that make self-recallable gear that instantly recalls. The only thing with that is that it's still going to work in 10 years. But hey, the same thing goes for your digital plugins, doesn't it? Oh yeah, I still need to fix my remote control. Well, for later day, because I didn't do the windows. I didn't do the lights either, so. Whew. All right. I really wish this was another episode of me driving to Spain. It is so cold in the Netherlands right now. And I know there's colder places on the earth, but if it gets below 10 degrees Celsius, I'm not happy anymore. Gotta do what we gotta do. I just have to work really hard to make the house in Spain with the studio come true. And if you want to help me with that, there's a join button down below that gets you to the virtual internship. You can also join the early access and extras to get videos a little bit earlier and get some extras while you're at it. But the virtual internship, there you will actually be able to learn everything you want from me. With that, I will take you with me through my mixing process, my recording sessions, maintenance days at various studios, and much more. There you will also be able to join a WhatsApp group for members only. So that's all the members of the virtual internship, my team members, and myself included as well. So if you ever have any questions or issues you're running into, together on the WhatsApp group, we can sort all of it out together. So that's the join button down below. Enjoy. Let's get back to analog gear. The next thing I want to talk to you about, which is really important when it comes to analog gear, is that you shouldn't forget that you actually need digital to analog and analog to digital converters to get to and from that analog gear, and the quality of those converters really matters in how good that stuff is going to sound. So if you're just going to go through an amazing piece of gear and you're using a 200 euro interface, you might not get the same results as when you get a mastering grade high-end converter. Now at my studio at home, I'm using the Apollos, which are great converters, but as some of you mentioned in the comments as well, they are not the ultimate best converters out there. Now I feel, having worked on the Apollo converters at the Red Bull Studios, Atlanta Studios, for the most part of my career, and having had Apollo converters for my entire career, basically, I feel they are definitely good enough to do what I need them to do. And I've had so many sessions and I've never had somebody come in and say,
oh yeah, I can really tell that you're using Apollo converters. It's not sounding that great.
if they didn't know what converters I was running, the only thing they would say was, "That's spot on, this is super nice." It was only when they heard that it was going through Apollo converters, you could see some people that really were into that stuff. You could, oh, is that a Porsche? Fuck. Oh, it's a 996. It's a convertible. Oh no, it was a Boxster, never mind. Boxes are horrible. But it was only the people that were actually a bit more into it and a bit more into the engineering side of things that would then say, oh yeah, that's not really the best I want to get out of it. And it's okay if you feel that way. I just don't feel that way. I've used Apollos all my entire career, and I've mixed great records, recorded great records. I never felt that was my biggest bottleneck. I'm happy to use the Apollos in any situation. Now, if you want to go for better conversion, go for better conversion. Definitely do that. I don't feel the need to. If you are getting into analog gear, try a couple of converter pieces and then see if you can tell the actual difference between that conversion quality, and if you think it is worth changing over to a different converter or interface and spending extra bit of money to get more out of that. So maybe you were wondering, why is this guy in his car and he is not just filming in his studio in his living room with a controlled environment and a great camera and everything? It is because I like driving, and I like driving so much that I want to ideally get my dream car, a Porsche 911, and travel Europe in that car. And while I am traveling Europe, I want to take, that is a 996. That one's nice. That is the car I want, the 996. I don't think you saw it on the camera, but that is basically the car I hope I can get. And then I can take you with me on a trip through Europe where I will be making music and finding lots of cool and interesting places like studios or factories of the brands we all love, and find a bunch of musicians and then record them from the car. And that is exactly what I'm trying to figure out. A couple of days ago I posted a story that I was looking into how to get an Apollo X4 connected and run it from my car. You can get a power inverter with a stabilizer and everything and just run it from the cigarette lighter socket thing, so directly on the battery of the car. But it is not super stable, and I do not want to risk damaging my gear. So my idea was to actually try that out, take you with me, but because there is a risk I am damaging my gear, I am not going to do that. However, I am looking into a portable battery situation setup. So something like, I think it's called the EcoFlow, and it is a battery that you can charge in your car from the power socket, but then it functions as a buffer, as a UPS in between, so you can actually run your MacBook and your X4 and everything from that battery. So I could be in I don't know, Spain somewhere, or Italy on a mountain where there's no power outlets, and I could actually do a recording session right there from my car. I'm trying really hard to make all of that happen, and I hope I can take you with me on that journey sooner rather than later. Stay tuned for that. If you do not want to miss out, hit the subscribe button, and then let's get back to my last couple of topics about why you should or should not work with analog hardware gear. Then this reason is a big reason for me and for a lot of people that I know that have bought a lot of gear lately, and that is using the gear as an investment. because there is a lot of gear that is going up in price. If you look at what a U47, when it came out in 1950s, 60s, it was probably a couple $100. Now back in the day, in that money, that was already a pricey unit, but nowadays they go for $20,000 plus. And there's a lot of stuff like 1176s that go up huge amounts. Their Fairchilds are insanely expensive now, and I see a lot of people with money buy gear that is going, ooh, nice, a Targa 992. Yeah, that's out of my price range, but Porsche is maybe not as good of an investment. If you spend like 35k on a Porsche, maybe you could buy a C800 and a U67, and in a couple of years it's going to be worth 50k. I still want a Porsche, but hey, that is what I see a lot of people do, and what I did as well. My Neve 1073s I could sell right now for more money than I bought them, and the same goes for my ATC SEM 25s. Now I can't say that for all of my gear, but some of the pieces I bought actually already went up in price, so I can actually make money just by selling them right now. Now the only thing that is a bit tricky about that is whether you are using your gear a lot or not at all, you are going to have to put it through maintenance, and how much that maintenance costs, yeah, that is going to determine how much money you are going to make on your investment later on. For example, a Neve console or an SSL console takes a little bit more maintenance than just a microphone or a compressor. So at the end of the day, when you sell that console, you might not have gained as much money as you would if you spent the same amount on compressors or microphones. And to stay on the topic of maintenance, with any piece of outboard gear, you are going to have more maintenance, because you are going to have more moving pieces and more actual physical pieces that might need attention instead of just your computer. Now, on the other hand, you do need to kind of change your computer every 3 to 5 years, and then your computer just becomes a paperweight, and your analog gear actually gains value when it gets older and older and older. So yeah, there's pros and cons there. If you're one of the people that has stuck with me until this point of the video, I think you might have noticed that I did not even mention the topic of sound quality up until this point, because this is so subjective, yet it is the biggest argument from everyone. The only thing I'm hearing is nobody is hearing the difference. The general public doesn't care what you do, what you use. It's getting listened back to through AirPods on Spotify in MP3 quality, so it doesn't matter if you use analog gear. Maybe it doesn't, maybe it does. That is what I try to find out with my channels as well. That is why I do a lot of plug-in versus hardware videos. That is why I try to focus more on the hardware realm. That is also why I'm doing the road trip with just the X4 and a couple of microphones, to see if me and my skills and my knowledge about audio with limited tools can actually get the results I need to get high quality results. So maybe you were waiting for my verdict on whether I think hardware gear, analog gear sounds better than plugins or not. All I have to say is that they're colors, and you're a painter. When you mix or when you record, you use your colors to create the best painting, and it is up to you as the artist, the producer, the mixer, the creative, to choose the right color for whatever painting you are making and for whatever song you are creating. And I'm not going to talk about that Porsche 911. And it is up to you to figure that out. And I think that is why it's important for you to do your job the best, that you have or don't have analog gear. And it doesn't matter how it's getting consumed later. It is a shame that it's getting consumed through AirPods on MP3s, but that should not withhold you from making the best sounding product and the best sounding track. I hope that helped and was enjoyable to watch. I think I wanted to get that off my chest and talk about that for a very long time, and I think I won't be stopping with this conversation anytime soon. I think we will continue and we will actually dive into it more. We'll do more plugin versus hardware comparisons. We'll go to more insane studios to see if we actually can tell the difference between $1 million analog setup and all the plugins you can get in the box. And I think that's exciting. And if you want to be there for that ride, hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, because then the YouTube algorithm can do its job. And I'll see you on another video. Later.